Um, well, I did my best. Or what do you think? Does it look alike? Welcome to a new video of Big Brother 161. And yeah, I know I already did a video about the Calibrated Sculk Sensor, but this time I want to make another video because some of the basic mechanics have changed in the past versions, and I want to review this element in more detail. As you may remember, we already did a video about the normal Sculk Sensor, and this time we want to review the new Calibrated Sculk Sensor and compare it to the old one. The first thing we have to do is obtain the normal Sculk Sensor, which I already explained on the previous video, and with this one we can obtain the calibrated one. You can see here the recipe. We just need 3 amethyst crystals and a normal Sculk Sensor, and we obtain the calibrated one. As you remember, the normal sensor registers movements and vibrations. When we connect it to redstone, we will emit a power level directly proportional to what distance is between the vibration source and the sensor. For example, let's activate this element 3 blocks away. We obtain power level 10. If we try 1 block further away, power level is 8. And if we try 8 blocks away, power level is 1. And in the 9th block, there is no detection. A change done to the Calibrated Sculk Sensor is that it can detect vibrations to a further distance. If we try 2 blocks away, power level is 14. 6 blocks away, power level is 10. On the 10th block, power is 6. On block 15, we obtain power 1. On block 16, it is also power 1. And in block 17, there is no detection. So in conclusion, the normal sensor can detect vibrations 8 blocks away, and the calibrated sensor can detect them 16 blocks away. Here with the normal sensor we can make redstone connections in all 4 sides. On the other hand, the calibrated sensor can only emit redstone signals on the 3 sides that do not contain this amethyst colored vein. We can also place a redstone piece just under the sensor, as well as the calibrated sensor. Another characteristic is that if we place a block just under the sensor, this will be strongly powered by the sensor. You can see that the redstone dust placed just beside the block also picks up the signal. This happens with both sensors. Nonetheless, if we place the solid block on one of the sides of the sensor, this will not pick up the signal. The only way to do it is to make a redstone connection on one of the sides. Also, for example, with a repeater. Another modality is using a comparator. If we place a comparator, the power signal picked up by the sensor will not depend on the distance of the source of the vibration, but it will emit a power level depending on what kind of vibration it detected. For example, walking emits a power level of 1. You can see all of this in this book. For example, landing, power level 2. If we go to a book, if we go to power 12, destroying a block, and power 13, placing a block. Let's see. Placing a block, power 13, destroying a block, power 12. And we can do exactly the same thing with the calibrated sensor. If we walk, power 1, placing a block, power 13, and destroying a block, power 12. So on this function it does exactly the same thing as the normal sensor. But now we will see the superpower of the calibrated sensor. What we can do is make a redstone connection on this amethyst vein, place a comparator, and varying the power level we put into the sensor, we can calibrate what kind of vibration it will detect. So our recommendation is to have one of these to calibrate the signal. This is just a book with 15 pages, and you can see in each of the pages I wrote down what kind of connection activates each power level. We just place a lectern and the book. And to calibrate the input signal, we just have to flip the pages and select the right one. So let's place page 12, power level 12. So in this case, this calibrated sensor will only detect the vibrations that produce power 12, destroying blocks. Here you can see I'm walking. Then I land. I place a few blocks, but it still doesn't detect anything. I can even eat, and nothing. The only vibration that will activate this sensor will be destroying blocks. So in a nutshell, we can calibrate this sensor to detect only certain vibrations and discriminate the others. We just need to flip the correct page in order to give instructions on what vibration we want to detect. And also another aspect of this sensor is that we can also take a signal through a solid block. We can place other redstone elements on this block and they will not activate. But with this combination, sensor, block, comparator, this can pick up a signal. And we can do this through a wall. You can see here on this dome the distance at which this sensor can detect vibrations. Remember that the normal sensor has a range of 8 blocks. But the spherical range of the calibrated sensor is 16 blocks, and it looks like this. So any action that occurs within this range, for example walking on this edge, the sensor will detect it. Another aspect is muffling. This can be done through wall blocks. As you may know, if we walk over wall, the sensor will not detect it. And of course, carpets are made of wall, the same thing. And if we place wall blocks or carpets, won't detect them. But wall can also block signals. For example, the sensor has a wall block just beside. This means this sensor can only detect signals that come from these directions. But if the vibration source is located on this blue area over here, the sensor will not activate. For example, I can break these blocks over here and the sensor will not detect me. We can also enclose this sensor. And I can do anything I want over here and the sensor will not detect it, because it is isolated from the rest of the world. And the Calibrated Sculk Sensor is pretty much the same thing. All this area is protected and I can also walk over wall blocks. And the same is done through wall carpets. So just imagine we place a wall block here. This cone of protection will also project towards this area. I place one here, and also this area is protected. And now the only directions where the vibrations can come and activate the sensor: down, for example underground, in front, and up here. But we can also encapsulate the sensor. Also, as well as the old sensor, this one cannot be moved by pistons. On the Sculk Sensor video, we just showed that the signal emitted by this sensor is 20 ticks long. But this has changed on later versions. Now its signal lasts only 15 ticks, or 1.5 seconds. Here you can see the signal captured by the lock repeaters. The difference is that the calibrated sensor has a signal a lot shorter, as you probably noticed on the previous experiments. It is only 5 ticks long, or 0.5 seconds. If we place an item just over the sensor, this sensor will continue to activate and deactivate to its minimal intervals. The sensors will emit signals within some pauses. So here you can see a pause between one signal and the other one, and it lasts 7 ticks. And the pause between pulses with a calibrated sensor is the same, 7 ticks. So after emitting a signal, the sensor has a phase in this pause where it doesn't matter what kind of vibrations occur, the sensor will not detect them. Here you can see the sensors activating constantly, but there are small pauses where it will not be able to detect any vibration occurring around them. Another characteristic of the sensor is that if we waterlock them, they will still be able to detect vibrations, but when they do, they will emit no sound. The calibrated sensor is pretty much the same. But if we usually use the calibrated sensor, we want to calibrate it. This is a problem. We have to make redstone connections without the water spilling over. So we can place, for example, this redstone piece under here, or across a solid block on the side, collect a signal with a comparator. But we also need this input signal to calibrate the sensor. So the danger is that if we put the sensor within water, the water may flow over and destroy the circuit. So a possible solution is making a hole on the side, and that way the water will only flow towards that hole. You can see here we are capable of inputting a signal and taking a signal out, because the water is only flowing towards this direction, towards the hole. Here you can see the sensor working, in this case destroying the blocks. Another solution is this. We place the lectern, comparator. We can place the sensor here, surrounded by blocks, and it can work this way. And to take an output signal, we can place the comparator this way. The first method is more unreliable. Here the signal is again calibrated towards 12, destroying a block. So this is another solution. We can use either one. We also saw this circuit, which is kind of a circuit that identifies signals. Here you can see 0, because the sensor is not detecting any vibration. So if I walk, the power level is 1. Placing a block is frequency 13. Destroying it is frequency 12. We can also build this circuit with a calibrated sensor, but it does pretty much the same. We're not going to calibrate the sensor, because the objective to the circuit is identifying the signals. So we walk, frequency is 1, we eat, frequency 8, place a block, 13, break a block, 12. And the redstone contraption works pretty much the same way. But since the pulse duration of the calibrated sensor is shorter, the time during which the circuit is working is a lot shorter also. Now with the second circuit, what it does is that, different from the first one, after detecting a frequency, the previous blocks don't illuminate. But it does the same thing, and also with the calibrated sensor. We eat. Power 8. Now, before the calibrated Sculk sensor, with a normal sensor, we did this contraption, where, depending on the load in this container, we can calibrate the power level on this redstone piece over here, but with a normal sensor. Well, this circuit is kinda bulky and big, and also it's kinda slow. So in some sense, we can compact this redstone contraption to this one, which is a lot simpler to manage. So in hindsight, we can see advantages and disadvantages with each sensor. For example, the calibrated sensor is a bit more expensive with the amethyst crystals, but it is a lot more precise, detecting specific signals. For example, we can use it for minigames and other applications, and I myself have some ideas on which applications I'm going to use it for. And another obvious difference is the radius range of its sensor. So maybe you want to detect some actions on a big or on a small area. Maybe the normal Sculk sensor is the one that better works for you. But if you want a sensor that works on bigger areas, you can use the calibrated one. Well, this has been Big Brother 161, and remember, I will be watching.